tradition. Because every ride should feel as smooth as the first. Spectro Performance Oils.
For the Superbike class, second qualifying. Yesterday it was Jake Gagne that led the way from Josh Herrin and the impressive Hayden Gillim, as we get ready for a 30-minute qualifying session here for the Superbike class. The weather conditions very different to what we had yesterday. And Michael Hill down in pit lane, it's very much a lot warmer than we had in yesterday's qualifying session.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It is definitely much warmer, and you kind of get the feeling that it's the calm before the storm down here. Just behind me is Ben Smith, and alongside him in the pit lane is Cam Beaubier. Certainly a rider, Cam Beaubier, that will be favouring these warmer conditions. I'm sure you guys will talk about it in the booth. Obviously, Cameron limited a little bit yesterday with those cooler conditions. Interestingly, if you didn't see the session yesterday, 5 different Superbike manufacturers inside the top 5 places. Steve, Roger, MotoAmerica Superbike this year is absolutely anybody's. There's only 2 points in it in the championship, all to play for here at qualifying 2.
Yeah, it really was interesting yesterday to see Jake Gagne and his Yamaha up there topping the times, but to have a Ducati, a Honda, a BMW and a Suzuki up there in the top 5 really showed plenty of variety out there as well, as Bobby Fong gets himself ready to head out on track as well. But Rog, when we look at what we saw yesterday, Gagne with a 39.9, impressive pace from him, but we are going to go faster in this session when everyone puts on their soft qualifying tire.
Yeah, and the biggest improver today needs to be Bobby. That's not where he wants to be yesterday there in 7th, so he's got to find some time overnight, and for him this is going to be a big qualifier.
Yeah, and you can watch all the MotoAmerica action through the course of the season on MotoAmerica Live Plus, where you'll be able to see all the races, the qualifying sessions, and plenty of interviews and extra content as well. So check out that on MotoAmerica Live Plus as Bobby Fong gets ready to head down pit lane. Just when we look at what we saw yesterday as well, Rog, Hayden Gillim very impressive on his number 69 Honda. As we see Josh Herrin on his Ducati getting ready to go out. Yesterday, Josh took a bit of time to get ready in the qualifying session for qualifying 2. He's out a lot quicker in this session as well, Rog.
Yeah, and it's just such a big session there with the track temperature up. The track's going to feel a lot different to these guys, and you know it's going to be important with the Superbike. There's so many things you can do overnight with electronics and chassis, so they're always trying to get out early to get as many laps as possible.
Yeah, it is always one of those things, the differences between a Superbike and say a stock 1000 bike for the adjustments that you're able to make, and that's where it's quite interesting to see what Hayden Gillim's been able to do on that number 69 machine, because for him and the Honda as well, it's important to be able to have good results. But yesterday, provisionally on that front row of the grid. Yeah,
just what a day he had yesterday. Definitely the standout performer of the day yesterday goes to Hayden Gillim there, ending up in the front row, and it's just great to see the Honda up there again inside the top 3. It's great to see the Honda support here for that team, and you know I see they got some guys from HRC here this weekend as well. So Honda's made in business. They want to come here and they want to perform, and Hayden's putting them back on the map.
Yeah, really important to be able to see that for the Real Steel Honda team. And when you look at Hayden Gillim, what's the big strengths that he has on the bike?
Well, he's really good on these tight technical tracks like this, where you know you got to kind of manhandle the bike. This track is not always about where you flow like through here. He's just really good at able to change directions of the bike.
You can see there as well, just catching Jason Waters in that first sector as well and having to run around the outside. But that strength on the bike, being able to manhandle it side to side, that's always important around a track like this where we've got so many slow speed corners.
And right through here, where he drops down out of this right-hander, it's just such a big dip, and for Hayden's able to kind of really maneuver the bike and get himself off the side of the tire there.
Yeah, you can see here for Waters in that 92 machine just making his way around in the middle of the lap now as well. The Ridge, a very technical track, like you said, Rog, one corner leading into the next. That's where during the course of this qualifying session, when we see the riders out there with their yellow striped rear tire, it's going to be important to see that they're able to hook up their laps, as we've been able to see Cameron Beaubier really hook up his qualifying laps through the course of this season so far. Our championship leader has been the pole man at all 3 rounds so far. Only holds that 2-point advantage over Josh Herrin, so with 50 points up for grabs this weekend, a lot can change for Cam Beaubier on that number 6 BMW. And Rog, when you look at what we saw from Beaubier yesterday, he wasn't where he wanted to be at all. He was down 4th fastest, but almost a second off the pace.
Yeah, just looked a little uncomfortable yesterday on the bike. Just didn't look like the normal Cam Beaubier. But, you know, you see how tight the top 4 is. There's 25 points up for grabs each race. So we still got 4 riders in this title, all within 1 race.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to be able to see that here at the 3rd point of the season. But now into rounds 4, 5 and 6 here at the Ridge Laguna next time out as well. And then VIR. This is really where you need to be able to stamp your championship credentials for what you're going to do through the season. And that's where for Beaubier as well. He's been the fastest rider so far this season, but that crash last time out in MotoAmerica cost him a lot of points, right?
A lot of points, and for him that was a really big crash, and for him it looked a little like he wasn't expecting it, you know, just kind of a weird crash for him. But for Cam, now he has to kind of start back over and, you know, start building those points back up if he can. But this is, as you mentioned, such an important part of the season, because to get in a good rhythm with your bike and your team and everybody be working well together, riding well, because all the races are starting to get closer and closer together, where before you had a race and then a couple weeks break, now you got a race, and then you got Laguna in a couple weeks, and then you got one right after that. So this is really the meat of the schedule.
When you think back to your career as well, how was it to be able to try and keep that momentum or find momentum if it was a tough time you were going through?
That's the hard part when you're looking for that momentum, is trying to find it. But it's, man, it is quite the ride when you got it though. But when you're struggling, it makes it tough, and you just got to keep going out there and getting laps and trying to figure out where you're struggling at.
Yeah, when you're in that zone and you're on the crest of a wave, you're really able to just make things easy for yourself. And once you're swimming against the tide, it's a very different story. As we see Bobby Fong here in the number 50 machine, and Bobby looks like his bike's a handful out there.
Yeah, he's definitely moving around quite a bit through here. We see Bobby, how hard he's pushing hard, just fighting it this week.
And around a track like this as well, Rog, obviously you talked about Hayden Gillum, that it's about trying to force the bike to do things. You also need the bike to want to do those things, and for Bobby Fong and that Yamaha right now, it just looks like he's having to override it.
And you can hear that engine braking going into turn 13. That's a lot more than we've heard from the other Superbike guys. So just a little bit of a setup thing, but for Bobby, he's got an experienced Superbike rider and a really good team, and I think they all sorted it out.
Yeah, 41-1 yesterday for Bobby Fong, and in this session in the 41 straight away. But time to find for him later on in the session as we catch up with a group of riders. It looks like Cam Beaubier there just running in a little bit deep. But you can see, looks like JD Beach out there as well. And for these riders, it's all about finding the right rider to follow as well, Rog, to be able to understand what you have to be able to do in parts of the track.
And also this track, with tight and technical, it's hard to pass even a slower rider. So finding those clean laps to be able to put some good laps in.
Let's see what Hayden Gillum's able to do now in this lap as well. For Hayden, he's just coming down in towards the end of this lap now as well. And Gillum in yesterday's session, he was a 40.1 as he gets the bike stopped into that left-hander at the top of the hill. But for Gillum, you're not going to be able to challenge your times from yesterday straight out in this session. You're going to probably, Rog, use a little bit of time to see what your race pace is like. But we saw yesterday for Hayden a lot of 1 minute 40 and 1 minute 41 laps.
And it's just that consistency. And I think for Hayden and that team, it's a kind of, as he goes, a 40.5. It's only a couple tenths slower than he went yesterday, and you have to assume he was probably out on the tire that he finished that first qualifier. But for that team, they're in the ball game, and this is the hard part to figure out, is you want to make some changes to get better, but you can't go backwards. So they're in a really tough spot now.
Obviously, for Hayden Gillum there, we saw him move to the top of the timesheets, a 40.5. That's about 0.4 of a second slower than he went yesterday as well. So combined time set the grid here in the Superbike class. So still plenty of time to find out there as well, as we see Bobby Fong coming across the line. And for Bobby Fong, a 41.5. And still that 3 or 0.4 of a second slower than he went yesterday. But at least for Bobby, you're able to start building that bit of confidence as Josh Herrin comes in to finish off this lap now as well. Josh, second fastest in this session, a 40.6, and again half a second slower than he went yesterday. So Rog, for a lot of these riders, that's the kind of time gap that we're seeing compared to what they were able to do yesterday.
Yeah, and I think this is going to get quicker as this session goes on. And to your point early on in this Superbike session, is all these guys are trying to get as many laps as possible to really get that race dialed in before they come in and get that qualifying tire.
Yeah, you'd expect most of the riders want to be able to do 5-6 lap run and then get themselves back into the pits.
And also, you don't want to burn, you make some setups overnight, so you don't want to go out sometimes, on a brand new tire and waste it if they're not better. So you want to go out and try to compare your setup to what you had yesterday, track conditions, laps on the tires, so you get a really good understanding if those changes you made overnight were it's better or worse.
Yeah, we're just catching up with Cam Beaubier here on the number 6 BMW, and Cam's probably a good example of it because we saw at the end of yesterday's session he went out for one fast lap, and you'd certainly expect that he's out there on that same tire.
And you can see here, Cam's out there getting some laps in. You can see him slow down, also trying to get him a little bit of space so he can get in a rhythm and try to find that comfortable. He's just not as comfortable as we're used to seeing him.
It's always one of those situations for riders as well, Rog, that if you've had a difficult Friday, you really want to be able to jump onto your bike and feel good right from the start. If it doesn't feel like you've made that improvement, you've really got limited time to be able to try and find something during a session like this.
Yeah, and even for Bobby, he's not as quick as he went yesterday, but he comes up the front straightaway and he's going to see P4. He didn't see that yesterday, so now he can say, okay, P4, I'm getting closer inside that top 3. We're kind of getting the momentum going in our way. When you struggle, or then you struggle at the beginning of the session, it is just so hard to dig your way out of, especially in the Superbike class.
This is Jake Gagne that we're seeing on the Attack Performance Yamaha, and for Jake, yesterday was really important to top the times. He's obviously had some injuries over the course of the season so far, but looks like he's finding that bit of time and a bit more confidence in himself now. He's just set the fastest time in this session of 40.3. That's about 0.4 of a second slower than he went yesterday.
Yeah, it looks like Jake's back. Last year struggled, some injuries, come in here yesterday and was so fast and just looks like the old Jake on this bike. You see him sliding around and scupping the corners, so you can see he's feeling back confident. I think after yesterday's day, he's like, okay, I can do it. I'm still can be winning these races.
Yeah, you have to remember just how dominant he was at one stage in the Superbike class. He was able to win a couple of championships, but you'd see him go out and win races by seconds and big gaps to the rest of the field. As we see Josh Herrin, another rider that knows how to go out there and win races, and for Josh on that number 1 machine, he's chasing his first pole of the season, and it's going to be tough for him on the Ducati around here. It does look like Gagne's just had a little bit more comfort underneath him than some of the other riders. Everyone else seems that their bike is moving around that little bit more.
Yeah, and the Yamaha's always been really strong here at the Ridge. It just really suits the characteristics of the Yamaha. You hear all the riders talk about how changing directions on the Yamaha is one of its strengths, and that's what this track is all about.
Yeah, and the cross-plane engine as well plays a role. It gives the rider a lot of confidence around tracks like this. As we see for Josh Herrin now just coming down in towards the end of this lap. Josh not on course to improve his time in this session, and for Herrin at 40.5 is his fastest time in this morning session, so still that half a second off of his fastest times from yesterday, but still with only 12 minutes gone in the session, you're not expecting to see riders out there trying to set their fast times. As we see Bobby Fong come back into the pits, and Bobby's one of the first riders we've seen come back into the pits, Rog.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he came back in and just blew his pit. You see him backing his bike up, or maybe he was headed back out and had an issue, but he's one of the first guys in, and for Bobby, I think it's been a good start to the session this morning.
Yeah, Bobby's been able to put in 5 laps during the course of his first stint, and at least for him, like you said, able to see himself up there in the top 5, and that'll give him a little bit of a lift and a boost now to be able to move into the end of this qualifying session whenever you're going to have to try and put it all on the line for your qualifying time for the 4th round of the season, as Hayden Gillam completes another lap, and Hayden's still second fastest. Last time around, Roger, 41.1, so decent consistency from Hayden, only half a second off of his fastest time in the session.
Yeah, but he's consistently quicker than the outside the top 4, so he's definitely laying in some laps. It's not as quick as his best, but he's definitely being really consistent. See Hayden's teammate here, JD, here on the stock 1000, so he's got a little less parts to play with, a little more of a stock bike for JD, but I think this year is going to be big for JD to try to get his confidence back. Last year he struggled and can get back to having fun and enjoying the bike.
JD's obviously a very experienced rider, and having that time on so many different bikes over the years gives you a lot of experience to be able to bring to a team. But when you've got that stock 1000 bike in the Superbike Cup, it's also one of those things that your adaptability and adjustment on the bike is very limited. That can be quite a good thing for some of the younger riders as well, to be able to give themselves the chance to be out there on the Superbike grid without having to make big changes to the bike. As we see here in the pits, Bobby Fong and plenty of other riders now making their way back into pit road. And we saw Jake Gagne come in as well, teammate to Bobby Fong on that number 32 Yamaha, the fastest rider so far in the session. And it's Gagne from Hayden Gillam, and then Josh Herrin, third fastest in this session as well. And the same three riders that were fastest in yesterday's running as well, as we see Jake now just taking a seat. And for Gagne, really important to be able to give himself the opportunity to qualify on that front row of the grid here at the Ridge for round 4 of the 2025 MotoAmerica season.
I think Jake too, we're kind of saying when he was on those runs and when he was winning those titles and all those races, he was so good at getting up to speed quick. And it looks like he's been able to do that this weekend as well.
Obviously, one of the things that changes is when a new bike comes in, when teams have to make changes, they have to then find themselves the opportunity to be able to give themselves the opportunity to find some more time. And a new Yamaha R1 for this season for the Attack Yamaha squad. And we'll be able to catch a glimpse now of Ben Smith's Yamaha and his laps he was able to do yesterday riding on board at the Ridge Motorsports Park. And Rod, you've talked a few times already about just how technical the track is, and we're going to get the opportunity now to ride on board with Ben.
Yeah, and we're going to get down into this first chicane here. We talk about how tight it is, how slow it is. You can see how hard on the Superbike, how hard, look how much he's got to get slowed down to go left. Then to this right, we've heard riders talk about grip coming out of there. They're trying to really get the power down on these Superbikes. It's hard. And from here, the track gets just super busy, but it flows really well. This left, up over the rise, you can't see the next corner. You got to make sure you hit your apex. From there, super long left-hander. You can get it wide open on a Superbike when the tire's good pretty early as they head into this long left-hander.
Yeah, through the middle of the lap as well, Rod. This is where one corner leads into the next. This is where the undulations are a big challenge for the riders as well. And picking up your reference points always a challenge here as well.
Yeah, and then this next part of the track is it drops downhill here. It's really difficult because it puts a load on that front tire. So you have to give a little bit of the front brake back as you rode through this right-hander. You know, my favorite corner when I rode here was this uphill right-hander here. It was blonde. If you hit your marks, you could do it wide open. Heading into this turn 11.
Yeah, and then down in towards the left-hander. This is where you come down to almost a dead stop, and then the track starts to drop away from you as well into the final sector. But this is where, Rog, for the riders, we can see the patches of the asphalt there as well. And for a new track, there are quite a few patches around here. This is a busy track with car racing as well.
Yeah, and this is where the corners connect, this part, turn 13. If you miss this apex, it's going to put you offline for this right-hander. Then it's going to put you offline for this next left. So you got to be so precise at turn 13.
And then obviously down in towards the final corner as well, we see riders running across that inside curb, and the curbs are tricky around here. We've seen quite a few riders caught out by bumps and also running over those curbs. As we see Ben Smith now on the number 78 Yamaha making his way around the track. Won 42.0 his fastest time in this session, and Ben is 8th fastest in this session and 8th fastest overall as well. We'll see what he's able to do on this lap to see if he's able to find some improvements. He's about a half a second slower than he went yesterday, as we catch up with Ashton Yates as well down there in the pits on the number 27 Honda. And Rod, you can see now as we move into the second half of this session, everyone's getting themselves ready to go out there on track.
It's going to be a big session this last 13 minutes. You see everybody pit lane. Some guys have went back out. This is where you'll see some riders go out right away, and they'll try to catch everybody on pit lane to try to get the big part right now is try to get a clean lap.
And obviously for Ashton Yates, trying to get himself ready to improve on his time provisionally on the 4th row of the grid. If you like what you've seen so far here today in the MotoAmerica Superbike class, you can play MotoAmerica for cash in Superbikes, Baggers and the Supersport Series. They're all now live on your top sportsbooks. So scan the flow code or visit nxtbets.com/playma to see what's available in your location. As it is, we're starting to see riders make their way out on track. And the top rider we have in the class so far, Richie Escalante and Bobby Fong, out there on track once again. But they're all chasing Jake Gagne here in the qualifying session. Gagne was fastest yesterday from Josh Herrin and also from Hayden Gillam. And Rog, when you look at the odds and the bets for what we can do here this weekend in the Superbike class, it's hard to look past Jake Gagne as your favourite.
Yeah, it's hard to look past it at those odds there. the top three is always really could bet on any of them. But I think with Jake, where he's at right now, showed this weekend, man, what a win in the drive would be huge for Jake Gagne.
Yeah, for the odds to win, it's still Beaubier that is the betting favourite, but Gagne has been the rider to beat over the course of the sessions so far. We've got around about 10 minutes left in this one to determine the grid positions for the fourth round of the Superbike class here in MotoAmerica, and you can catch all the action on MotoAmerica Live Plus, and that'll be all the sessions, the practice and qualifying, and also the races across all of our classes as well. So check that out to be able to keep up to date through the course of this 9-round season, as we see Richie Escalante now out there trying to improve his times. He had a new personal best in that first sector, Rog, and a 40.7, his fastest time of the session last time around.
Yeah, and Richie talked about on the pre-show yesterday morning that he wants to start these Fridays a little bit stronger and not have to play so much catch-up all weekend. And yesterday, I feel like they had not a great first day, but a pretty solid one to start building on the weekend, and is carrying over this morning.
Just for Richie as well, it was a 41.0 yesterday that he did, so he's already gone a quarter of a second faster, 0.4 of a second faster now than he went yesterday. So one of the few riders we've seen make those improvements, but we'll see what everyone else is able to do when they get themselves back out on track and up to speed. But good from Richie to be able to put those 2 laps together as well, Rog.
Yeah, and I think that's just huge for Richie, able to get these laps in and be able to consistently put some, and he's got the track to himself. A lot of it's just finding your rhythm, getting in your flow for some of these riders. They just need to get some laps.
Good as well for Richie. He's paired up with Sean Dillon Kelly. Good rider to have alongside you, good yardstick to be able to judge yourself by. And you can see for Escalante, it looks like the lap's gone away. But Rog, when you look back at your career, you had plenty of fast teammates that you had to contend with, and it's either going to spur you on or it's going to make it where your life's very difficult.
Yeah, and if you can work together, it really helps elevate the team. But the first person that you want to beat is your teammate. They're on the exact same bike that you're on, so you know what the bike is capable of.
Yeah, and obviously enough, sometimes the relationships can take a bit of a pounding from that. It does seem that for the Vision Wheel Suzuki squad, though, that Escalante and Sean Dillon Kelly very closely matched out there as we now catch up with Bobby Fong. And again, for Bobby Fong, you're being compared to a double Superbike champion every time you're out on track. Yeah,
and for him there, he had a really good first sector there. You can see maybe got held up a little bit in that second one, and it kind of went away from him.
Just looking at the time and screens as well, we've got just under 10 minutes left in this session. We still haven't seen Hayden Gillum and Josh Herrin back out on track, but we'll keep an eye on whether anyone's able to find their improvements now that they go out. Beaubier was a 40.9 yesterday. Beaubier is on a very good lap in this session as well. Could well be the fastest time we've seen so far this weekend. It was a 39.9 that we saw yesterday from Jake Gagne. That's the provisional pole. And Rog, coming into these final couple of corners, looks like Beaubier is on course.
Yeah, he was so good through that last sector there, and we're going to see what he's going to be able to do. It's going to be a 39.9.
And that's around about a 1/10 of a second faster than Jake Gagne's time. So for the first time this weekend, Jake Gagne has been challenged as well, and Beaubier has been able to make that big step forward on the BMW, as we see Beaubier continuing on this lap. But really fast times from Beaubier on that number 6 machine.
Yeah, and interestingly for the Beaubier machine, the number 6, the Titleist BMW, the weather conditions playing a big part in that. We heard yesterday from Tony Romo from the Dunlop tyre technician and the boss of Dunlop, basically talking about the pressures that they were having to run yesterday. Very, very different pressures. As the temperature comes up, that means that they can increase the pressures, and that gives a bigger contact patch on the circuit, and that is what Beaubier was lacking yesterday. He's got that feeling back, and a much improved session today for Beaubier, but that potentially, Roger, is the reason.
Yeah, and for look at Cam there. Did you see the front end as he's coming up over that hill with the temperature being up, tire pressure, right where Dunlop wants it to be? You can just see. And Beaubier's routing, he just looks more confident in this stint.
And that was one of the things for Cam. Yeah, as Cam has a big moment on the front end through there, but pushing on, that's a good sign for Beaubier as well, that he's got that confidence. But yesterday, having to run that higher PSI as well, it obviously means that the tire doesn't have quite as much rubber on the ground. It just can't quite have that same pressure and be able to really spread across the asphalt.
And also it gives you a little bit different feeling in your hands, and that's all the things about the confidence for these riders is how much chatter or what they feel in their hands. So but those are part of it being, Superbike riders. You got to adjust.
What's interesting as well for Beaubier, comes back into the pits. Probably a little bit planned as well to come into the pits, because we saw Josh Herrin's gone out there with the yellow stripe in his rear tyre, so he's out there with that softer rubber to try and set his fastest time in the session. Beaubier is going to have the opportunity to do the same as well now, Rog.
And everybody's going to be able to come in here toward the end, and you're going to see changing rear tires. They're in a hurry. They're trying to make sure you can get out and get a couple laps in.
Michael Hill, you're down in the pits and looking to see what's going in there for Cam Beaubier.
Yeah, Steve, I've just actually moved away from the team of Beaubier, but I can see a new rear tyre going in. It looks like it is going to be another soft tyre. I was just walking along as well, just to try and check in with the Warhorse HSBK team to try and understand what tyre Josh Herrin has got in. But they're all busy, deep in a conversation, huddled around a laptop right now, so I can't actually find out. But looks like it is a new rear tyre, as you guys can probably see for Beaubier. I would suspect it's another soft tyre. That would be my hunch, but I'm a little bit further down the pit lane, so I can't answer that one for you, I'm afraid.
Thanks, Mike. And Rog, we were able to see for Herrin, he went out with that yellow stripe on the rear tyre.
Yeah, and now you can see there looks like Jake Gagne's got it on as well.
And Bobby Fong as well.
Fong, so.
This is where the qualifying session really kicks off. This is the last 5 minutes. This is where everyone has to really hook up the lap. How many laps are you able to get out of one of these tyres?
It's more than just a qualifying tire, because it'll last a couple laps and be able. And every track is different. Some tracks you get a little bit more. A little bit more time out of it. We've heard riders talking about this weekend where they have been struggling with grip, so this soft tire could really be a huge advantage.
Yeah, and this is Josh Herrin with a really strong first sector, almost half a second faster than Cam Beaubier, and this could actually be one of those laps that puts you in a position to be able to challenge for the outright lap record. The 39.145 for Jake Gagne is the lap record, and on the basis of that first sector, this is going to be somewhere in the ballpark. As we see for Josh Herrin now making his way to the final sector. Didn't quite find as much time in sector 2 there, Rog.
No, but he was able to hang on there, and we'll see if he can put this last sector. You can see that lapper there that he had to pass kind of put him a little bit offline more than he would like into turn 13.
You can see a big shake of the head from him as well, and for Josh still trying to find the grip out there, pushing on to see if he's able to set this fast time in the session. 39.9 from Cam Beaubier was our fastest time. We're 0.4 of a second faster than that now, but Josh Herrin should still have some time he's able to find. Looks like he's rolled off for this lap. He'll try and have one more fast lap at the end of the session.
You can see Hayden. You can see all the riders how hard they're pushing, starting to make a couple little mistakes. The bike's moving around. Ashton Yates, just want to mention his name right now, setting fourth.
Yeah, really good effort there from the number 27 Honda, but we'll keep an eye on everyone else as they make their way through these laps. A 40.2 there for Hayden Gillum, and for Hayden, that's round about 0.7 of a second off where he wants to be, and runs in hot into turn 1 there as well, and he'll try and rejoin the track, and still with enough time, Rog, for another lap at the end of this one.
Yeah, and for Hayden, it just seems like he's kind of, with that softer tire, trying to find that extra little bit that he had yesterday compared to like Josh Herrin. He puts that tire on and he finds a big chunk of time.
We always think when you put that soft tire in, it's going to immediately find you a lot of time, but sometimes it can also push the front and it can make it a lot more difficult for the rider out there.
And another big thing too is you're riding harder, so you're making more mistakes. And also with that softer tire, you're coming into corners, and like a long right-hander, you're going to be able to carry so much more speed. When you get to the next corner, you're coming in quicker than you went the previous lap, so you got to kind of adjust your markers.
And we see here for Sean Dillon Kelly on course to improve his time as well. Dillon Kelly down there in 7th fastest in this session, and should be able to move himself up onto that second row of the grid. You'd imagine that he'll be aiming for his teammate Richie Escalante's time of 40.6, but Sean's going to have to find a little bit more time as well than that if he's going to be able to hold on to a second row spot.
And Sean's just been off a little bit this weekend, been on the front row. The previous races and inside the top 5, just been a little bit of a struggle, but let's see what Sean can do now as he moves up into 4th.
Yeah, 40.3 there for him, and round about 0.8 of a second off Josh Herrin as we catch up with Jake Gagne now. And Gagne, you can see on this lap, half a second down. He's just building up to what you would imagine on his next lap is his real hot lap. As he comes through the end of the lap there, and you can see just how much, Rog, the bike really picks up once you got that soft tire.
Yeah, just how much it almost wants to wheelie a little bit more because you have that little bit extra grip. See what Jake, he goes over the curb or misses that curve in the turn 1. a lot less of a bump.
Just trying to make sure that the bike's as stable as possible through that part of the track. And this is a bumpy track, though. There's a lot of track joins, particularly from that chicane up in towards the long left-hander at the start of the lap. But for Jake Gagne, we'll see what he can do on this lap to see if he's able to find something. We're also looking at Richie Escalante here, 4th fastest in the session so far, and a 40.2 there for Escalante. So that's the target time still for Sean Dillon Kelly, a 10th of a second slower than his teammate. Gets a little bit crossed up there as well, trying to get the bike stopped, right?
Yeah, into turn 1, turn 11 there, actually. It's just really fun watching his style when he's pushing that hard. It almost looks like he's on a super motard bike as he goes into turn 11.
He's done a good job since jumping onto a Superbike last season after his time in the Moto2 World Championship. And for Dillon Kelly, this is the opportunity to try and find a little bit more time at the end of the lap. Down by a second compared to Josh Herrin's fastest time. And we're starting to see some riders put in improved sectors now as well. Jake Gagne with the fastest sector time of all in the middle of the lap. So Gagne is going to be on course to be able to move himself pretty close to Josh Herrin's time. It was second fastest for Gagne last time around, a quarter of a second down on Josh Herrin. But this lap looks like he's got an opportunity to move up to the top of the times as the lap's gone away from Josh Herrin. But it's all about what Jake Gagne is going to be able to do, Rog.
He's really good through this last set. This is where the Yamaha excels. See that quick left to right? Just looks like he doesn't struggle with that as much as some of the other guys.
Yeah, a little bit more stable through there for Gagne, a bit easier to ride. Let's see what he can do. A 39.3, fastest lap we've seen so far this week. Still a 10th of a second off of his outright lap record, but is that going to be enough for Jake Gagne to take his first pole of the season? As we see Escalante finishing off his lap now, and for Richie on the number 54 machine, trying to improve his time, a 40.2 last time around, and as he comes across the line, it's a 40.4. Wasn't able to find some time, but he's round about 9/10 of a second off the fastest time as we now catch up with Cam Beaubier. Beaubier, personal best in the first sector. The lap went away from him in sector 2, but with a good final sector, he will be able to give himself a chance to be close to Josh Herrin on the combined times, but probably asking a little bit too much here in the BMW to be able to find that extra bit of time for that middle of the front row, right?
It really looks like Beaubier's front end is chattering quite a bit more than some of the other, like kind of bouncing a little bit, where he doesn't look as confident as normal on the front end.
Yeah, and for Beaubier, comes across the line there, 30.9, so only a 10th of a second, or half a 10th of a second actually slower than his fastest time in this session. That'll give him a bit of confidence even with the soft rubber, that he's got that consistency as Sean Dillon Kelly comes through to finish this lap. Not on course to improve his fastest time. It's going to be second row of the grid for Sean on that number 40 machine. He's going to line up behind his teammate Richie Escalante, and decent effort from Hayden Gillum as well up there in the second row once again, Rog.
Yeah, Hayden was really the only rider not able to take advantage of that softer rear tire to be able to go quicker. So falls down a little bit, but he's got to be feeling pretty good knowing that he's been able to do his lap time on race rubber.
Yeah, and season's best qualifying performance as well for Hayden in 5th position. So good effort from him on the 69. But for our pole sitter, it's also going to be the first time this year where we see Jake Gagne on the front row of the grid. And for Jake, round about 2/10 of a second off of his outright lap record, but he's going to be more than happy to take that first pole of the season. He's been the rider to beat all the way through this weekend so far. For the 2025 season, Tom Fine Jewelers of Ohio will produce custom championship rings and pendants for the MotoAmerica champions in the Superbike, King of the Baggers, Super Sport and Mini Cup classes. Tom will work with each champion to choose from several designs with retail values between $12,000 and $15,000. Jake Gagne, he's been able to win a couple of championships in the Superbike class in the past, but Rog, this is what's really important for him, to see him back up there, leading the way in this qualifying session, but more than anything, top the times in practice yesterday, top the times in qualifying 1, tops the times in qualifying 2. He's very clearly a rider to beat.
Very clear, and just the way he's been able to go out and do those lap times right away so early into the sessions. And for Jake, he mentioned yesterday he's been a little bit off compared to the other guys so far this year, but the Jake Gagne of old looks like he came back this weekend, and it's just great to see him. Last year was a struggle with the injuries, and you know that's mentally tough to be able to try to fight through that, and he's able to do that and be back where he was.
Yeah, really good to be able to see Jake Gagne claiming that first pole position of the season. He's going to line up ahead of Josh Herrin, second in this qualifying session, second time in a row he's been in the middle of the front row of the grid. For Cameron Beaubier, it's another front row start, but for the first time this season he's been beaten in a qualifying session, and for Beaubier he'll line up on the outside of that front row of the grid. Hayden Gillum will line up 4th fastest, and that's the season's best performance for him, with Richie Escalante and Sean Dillon Kelly up there on the second row of the grid.
Yeah, Ashton Yates, good session for him. Bobby Fong, not where he wants to be there in 8th. Got a little work to do in the race. Bryce Cornbell, and then Benjamin Smith running out the top 10.
We're building up towards race 1 for the Superbike class, and if you go to nxtbets.com/playma, you're able to see who you want to put your money on over the course of this weekend. Jake Gagne is our pole sitter, and you'd have to say, Rog, on the basis of the 3 sessions we've seen for Superbike so far, he's very much your favourite.
Yeah, I think he would be tough not to lay a little bit on Jake Gagne, just the way that this session has went. But Hayden Gillum, look at him. If you're looking for a long shot, take a little bit of a risk there, look at those odds.
Yeah, for Hayden Gillum, obviously podium contender here as well, given his consistency over the course of the practice and qualifying sessions. Looks very strong in his Honda, and once again here today we're able to see 5 different manufacturers up there inside the top 5 positions, with the Honda of Gillum in 5th, Richie Escalante's Suzuki in 4th fastest, and Cam Beaubier is going to be 3rd fastest on the outside of the front row of the grid for race 1 this afternoon. And for Beaubier, this is the first time he hasn't taken pole position in a qualifying session, but it's also been a challenge for him all the way through this weekend, Rod. But once he put in that soft tire at the end of the session, really looked like he had a lot more confidence.
Yeah, I just struggling a little bit with, and it's just, Cam has had such a good career in the season. We talked about him struggling this weekend, and he's 3rd. It was just so impressive that Josh Herrin, always good at this track as well, and able to go out and put some good laps in.
Yeah, it's great to be able to see Josh up there as well. And our front row of the grid's going to have 3 of our MotoAmerica Superbike champions, with Jake Gagne having topped the times in all 3 sessions so far this weekend. Also setting the pace in the qualifying session. You can see the number 32 Attack Yamaha rider. Very strong and consistent pace all the way through this weekend. It's been a tough start to the year for Gagne, but he's been the rider to beat here in the Superbike class and takes that first pole position of the season. And we're going to get the chance to hear from Jake down in Park Farm with Michael Hill.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. First pole position of the season for Jake Gagne, just shy of the outright circuit record, and that's one way of taking your first pole of the season. Good job.
Yeah, it's good. I haven't seen the front row in, man, a year probably, so it's good. You know, the Yamaha's working really good. Team's working hard. I feel like the bike's been good all year. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to ride it again and kind of get the most out of it, and we made some progress from yesterday. We made quite a bit of progress, just kind of getting the feeling with the front that we wanted. And but yeah, it's gonna be a long, gnarly race today. I think we're kind of all kind of in no man's land, knowing what the tires are gonna be like halfway. But these Dunlops hold up. They always hold up better than you'd expect. So we'll just try to go battle with those boys. It'll be good. Just want to run at the front. It's been a while, especially in the dry, that I've ran with those guys at the front and put up a fight. So we'll see what we got.
It's great to see you back at the front. Also for the fans watching, 3 different manufacturers on the front row of the grid, 5 manufacturers in the top 5. It's going to be an intense one. Where do you reckon your biggest competition's coming from? Certainly from the guys on the front row, for sure.
Yeah, it's killer, man. Everybody's riding good. You know, Bobes and Herrin. Yeah, Hayden's ripping. You know, the Suzuki's, Richie and Bob will be there, and it's cool. It is cool to see that many manufacturers. Yeah, I just want to be in the fight. So.
Final question before we let you get to the team. You talk about the track conditions a bit different. You made some changes. Are tyres going to be the decisive factor in this race? Is it all going to be about preserving tyres? Do you reckon you can make a break? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm firing a million questions at you here, but what do you reckon the biggest challenge is going to be?
Yeah, the competition. Everybody's stepping it up. And I think, like I said, with the cool temps we had yesterday, the tires kind of have a little bit of a tearing going on, which is to be expected, and it'll be warmer this afternoon than all weekend, so I think it's only going to get better, and tomorrow will be warmer again, so it'll keep getting better, and just want to go fight with those guys, see what happens.
Thanks, Jake. Well, Steve, he's up for the fight. I can't wait to watch this. It's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, definitely. We want to be able to see Jake Gagne, former champion, up there fighting it out at the front and just showing how competitive the Superbike class can be as well. But with Josh Herrin and Cameron Beaubier up there on the front row of the grid, we're definitely going to have action-packed races in the Superbike class. Next up on track, though, will be the Mission Super Hooligans out there for their second qualifying session of the weekend here at Ridge Motorsports Park.
Get Get ready to eat like a king with Mission Foods. Load up those saddlebags for Mission King of the Baggers Racing and feed your need for flavor. Fully loaded tacos, fast wraps, piled high nachos, whatever you crave.